fought for the overlooked in courts, and mentored Indigenous workers into building new futures. Candy Spalding, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. What an amazing intro.
If you could go back and stand in front of your younger self, what's one bit of advice you'd give younger Candy when you were 16 years old, and why?
That 16-year-old didn't know who she was, didn't know her ability, and didn't even think she was going to be anything. Hang on tight and actually just enjoy the ride and know that everything you're doing, you're learning, is leading you.
Any advice or tips you could share with our listeners? Perhaps they may be feeling stuck, or what would be a mantra you could share with them?
If we look at the side of me that's spiritual as well. So I've always trusted in the journey. Basically, everybody expected me to fail. I had to be my cheerleader.
Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life from the Horizon Digital podcast recording studio here in Perth. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer, the founder of Design Studio Perth, and to celebrate the launch of Season 2 of the show, Design Studio Perth is offering all our listeners a free brand discovery. So if you find yourself frustrated and over haphazard brand presentation and messaging, use the link in the show notes to book in a time to have a chat. Now, the Real Biz Life Chronicles is on a mission to become one of Australia's leading business podcasts, but in order to do that, we please need your help. So if you do enjoy this episode, we please ask that you like and subscribe to our channels below. Some people face adversity and it breaks them. Others, a rare few, take every hit, every setback, every unfair twist of fate and turn it into fuel. Today's guest is one of those rare few. With over 25 years of experience across mining, oil and gas, construction, agriculture, and now the law, she has forged a career that spans industries most people wouldn't dare to enter, let alone lead in. She has managed major engineering projects, led shutdown crews, launched international companies into new markets, fought for the overlooked in courts, and mentored Indigenous workers into building new futures. But if you ask those that know her best, the real story isn't just professional wins. It's in the loyalty she shows, even when no one's looking. It's in the kindness that never dims, even when the world gets rough. It's in the fierce dedication she gives her family, especially her daughters, even while balancing the enormous pressure of corporate life. Her journey is proof that real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet, relentless refusal to give up, no matter what. And if there was a soundtrack that captures her spirit, it's Tupac's Picture Me Rolling, a bold, brilliant defiance of every obstacle life has thrown at her. What she's achieved, given what she's overcome, is nothing short of extraordinary. Candy Spalding, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. What an amazing intro.
Yeah, you're welcome. Only the truth, right?
Thank you.
Candy, before we dive in, you've achieved so many incredible achievements, and I think for our listeners, I would love to know, before the titles, the achievements, what shaped you most growing up?
Before coming onto this podcast, I actually gave this some thought. I think it, like all individuals, it starts with your home life. And I think growing up in the UK, as I did, I was born into a predominantly, anyone who knows me, I have some colour, a predominantly white neighbourhood in the outskirts of London. And there was a lot of racial tension while I was growing up. So I was bullied a lot because of my colour. There wasn't too many people of colour when I went to school.
Yeah.
Also being the eldest in my family, as many when both parents work, I was provided with responsibility at a very young age that I didn't really want, looking after my other siblings. So, but I did it and I was very protective, and I think that's where my protectiveness, I'm incredibly protective over those that I love and care for, came from. And I think also I was the kid that there was another sister that I had that was the princess in the family, and I wasn't the princess. and being the eldest, I actually gravitated more to my brothers and would be caught in the dirt, playing soccer, playing the sports, loved roughing it up.
Nice.
So I was more the tomboy. And my mother was more into hair and makeup and dressing perfect. And I always got those disapproving looks regarding my hair, the way my hair was, the clothing, how dirty I was. But she had my sister to focus on. And then academically, my other siblings seemed to excel at school. I didn't. I was actually the disruptive one.
Sure.
So those out there that don't do well in school, I did terrible in school. And I think at that stage, nobody really knew about ADHD either, even though I'm undiagnosed. But I was the kid that would jump out of a window even to avoid being in the classroom or sitting still. Disruptive, constantly told that, the lack of concentration, but I didn't want to really be there, and I wasn't very focused and understood the work very well.
Yeah.
So I was just one of those who kind of survived schooling, and I actually left school. Actually, let's go back a little bit. My parents migrated here when I was 16 years old, which was a terrible age.
It would have been.
I was halfway through my high school in the UK, and so because I knew we were migrating, I misbehaved and I didn't do well. And then I land in year 11 TAE here, and everyone's all being prepared in year 10 going into a year 11, and I'm expected to do well in year 11, and I didn't do very well at all.
Sure.
So what did I do? Back to the old disruptive behaviour. So the school said, look, it's best you do vocational studies, and which they dumped me in literally, and I ended up doing cooking and secretarial and sewing, which someone who's a tomboy, I couldn't think of anything worse. So coming towards the end of high school here, I literally got put in with the RAC on a internship at 16 and a half, 17, and absolutely loved it. And so the RAC, who were amazing, such a well-structured organisation, said to me, we actually would like to offer you a job. Would you like to be a clerk with us? And I jumped at it. So I actually didn't finish high school.
Right.
So, which part of me regretted a little bit later on, but I just found my feet within the RAC. And so I worked in membership back in the days where technology, there wasn't hardly any technology. They've come leaps and bounds from there. So we're talking about the early 80s.
Right.
So I worked with the RAC for 2 years, and I flourished working for them, and that's when I sort of stepped into modelling, which I didn't know which. I've just released a tribute to Ray Costarella, who is a world-renowned fashion designer who's just passed away. But Ray was an amazing human being, and these were human beings who crossed my path as well during these 4 or 5 years of being in the entertainment industry, hospitality industry, and modelling and fashion. So that was another world that just opened up to me, and I was very blessed. I got to be an entrant in the Miss Australia Quest.
Wow.
Now, this was another, and this is where to the forefront where this challenging behaviour really started to come to the forefront. The lady who was running the Miss Australia Quest said, "Oh, you're a late entrant. All the other entrants have all raised $1,000 to be a part of this, and I don't see how you're going to be able to raise $1,000 because we're into the next phase of the competition." And I said, "I'll get you your $1,000. And she said, "Oh, well, okay, well, well, let's just see how you go.
Yes. And this was the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So that's like, what, 10 grand now, I'd say?
Yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
well,
if not more.
It seemed like a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so I said, give me all the raffle tickets you need to and just leave it to me. And I'm not joking. I literally door knocked for a week.
Oh, wow.
I went and drove street after street. I could have felt like it was north and south of the river, and I just sold all these raffle tickets.
Wow, yeah.
And then within the week, I had the $1,000 and I went and saw her and just said, there's my entry money.
Yeah.
There's my $1,000. And that was that. And I was I qualified. And so I went on, and then during those as an entrant, I went on to actually do amazing things, and this is where I feel so lucky and blessed. I started a whole fashion parades for charity, and I got to hold them in the nightclubs. And there was a nightclub in Perth, the Red Parrot. Well, I think it became the Palladium. And I held a massive fashion show for charity with Benetton, who are no longer here, the fashion brand. So I partnered with Benetton. I had Paul Redman from 92.9. He was my commentator. And just the most amazing people came together.
Yeah. What a great idea at a nightclub as well. So cool.
Yeah, Cleve McMillan, he went on to be one of the famous hair designers. But this collaboration of people and the magic, this is what I've always found. I just will jump in feet first, and the amazing people that come to the forefront. And this was, and it turned out to be an amazing event. And then I became a finalist for the Miss Australia Quest, and they actually asked me to run again the following year, but it did take a lot out of me, and I declined.
I've heard they can, yeah.
But it was just amazing to be able to do this. And, you know, and then I enjoyed doing more parade. I love fashion parades and things like that and dressing up. Even though the tomboy in me, I got to dress up and be on catwalks and things like that. So that was a career that sort of came to an end when I became I started working for Jeans West head office. And that was when Jeans West, now sadly it's closing.
So I've heard, yes.
Yeah, so I feel privileged to have been part of the foundation when they were quite successful and large. We had an amazing team in Jeans West, and that was the last of kind of leaving the fashion industry behind me, because I was working in the state head office, and great time. So that filled in that bubble of being a part of a completely different industry, but I was still able to just do amazing things, come across amazing people. And I think it's that love of the excitement of the unknown.
Yes.
And so when I go back to the raffle tickets, I realised I love the challenge. If somebody says to me, you can't do it, I'm like... I'm
the same. Yes, that word can't. So I'm like, I would love to prove you wrong.
Yeah, don't say you can't.
Yeah.
That's something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and I also think, Candy, that highlights something, you know, people, I know I've been this person where you always have all these excuses why you can't do something, but isn't it funny when you focused and you want something to happen, like hell or high water, like even if, you know, you had to go door knock to how many people, you make it happen for yourself.
Yeah, and that has not changed no matter what opportunity comes forward for me. It's like, I think probably on my journey I've been very fortunate where you hear the term accidental company secretary.
Right.
Now that is a role that as a member of the Governance Institute, I hear that a lot. It's people who are in the senior level realms of the organisation. They're probably finance and they're interacting with the board, and then there's the need for a company secretary, and they suddenly find themselves as the company secretary, and they call that the accidental company secretary. That's kind of been my journey. So I've got a job and I'm always just focused. I'm a task-orientated person.
Sure.
So it's onto, say, that task or challenge, the next thing. And that's all I do. I just want to do a very good job and do it properly. That's been one of my things. If you're going to do something, do it properly.
Yes.
Don't do a half-assed job.
No, rather don't bother.
Don't bother. And, you get found out. I mean,
always.
So I think for me, I've always, if somebody entrusts me with a task or to do something, I take that seriously.
Yes.
Wholeheartedly. And so when I went to work for an organisation, I took that organisation on and I cared for that organisation. I wanted to see the organisation succeed. I wanted to see the people succeed. And I think for me, as my role grew within organisations, I had been somebody who's always started from the bottom as well. So everyone has to start somewhere. So to me, people became very important. It didn't matter what role you had, that person was important. And that, to me, I think has held me always in good regard because I cared for people. I genuinely care for people in general. And I wanted to see people succeed in what they were doing. I wanted to make sure they were okay. And that sort of kind of led me in my leadership role. People began to trust in me. And so I guess probably when I go back to the accidental company secretary, I found myself in roles where I was dealing with a lot of directors and these people that crossed my pathway would ask me to take on a role within their company. And so I didn't really interview for a lot of my roles. I was actually asked to so-called help out.
Sure.
And I would take that seriously. And I was blessed to, I think for my introduction into the oil and gas sector, after leaving the mining, let's go back to, I just remembered being a woman in this industry and I do have children.
Yes.
He's probably going to kill me for me saying this. I was working for a wonderful Swiss company for 2 years and I wanted to have children. And my director, who I was working closely with, said, how are you going to cope with children? You won't be as smart as you used.
Oh my goodness! Did he verbalise that?
He verbalised it. Whether he said it jokingly or whatever, but it was like, you can't really have children, And I took that seriously, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have children. Once again, don't tell me what I'm not going to have.
Precisely.
So I decided to actually leave and do temping for 2 years, which was amazing. I got to get into organisations I wouldn't normally work in. So I worked with Western Mining Corporation, got onto different projects, and that's when I got onto the project of the Wandoo Alliance, and that was an amazing oil and gas platform, and we were in Netherlands, and they were so kind. I actually fell pregnant as being a temp, and I worked with them right up to, with a big bump, 2 weeks before giving birth.
Yeah.
Actually, I gave birth, I think, on the weekend and went back to work the following week. So I had to at that stage because there was sort of a 2-3 lap of where I just needed to qualify to get some annual leave. And so everyone was saying, what'd you do on the weekend? I gave birth, but I just need to finish these last 2 weeks.
Yes.
But my boss came out and saw me. So it'd been about 2 years since I saw him, and I was actually pregnant when he came and actually said, I owe you an apology. And I thought that was amazing. He said, I'm sorry for what I said. I was wrong. And I thought.
Good on him,
that was,
it takes a lot of courage.
And he's crossed my path on and off over the years since that time, and I respect him a lot. But I think at that time it was at a time where it was really hard for women, I think, to balance career and be driven and be able to fit children and have children and do that.
Yeah, especially in that sort of time.
Yeah, and so also I had started because of my schooling career, and actually while I was working with this director, I realised I wish I'd done better at school, because I realised education is going to be really important. And at that stage I was 28 years old, no children, and I was working late one night, and this is where I believe it, you never know who crosses your path. And there was an accounting firm next door, and this man who I'd known, he was one of the partners at the accounting firm, came and saw me. He said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And we had a chat, and I said, "Oh, I'm really regret not going to uni and not doing better at school." And he said, "Well, there's no excuse." I found out he was on the board of Edith Cowan.
Oh, right. Wow.
So that late night was amazing, just being there alone working, because he said, "What I want you to do is write me some essays. I'm going to give you some topics. You're going to go and sit the stat test and we're going to get you to university." So I had a mentor suddenly, and
incredible.
So
divine timing.
It was. I have a lot of divine timing on my journey, and this is why I love people to just realise you don't know who is going to cross your path and change your life forever.
So true. And I know we briefly touched on this before the show. It's so true, and a great reminder as well.
Yes. And so thanks to I think it's Barry Chapman, but it's been so long, so please forgive me if I get your name wrong. But it's just because it was a long time ago.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks. It changed my life. I got into uni. And I got into Curtin, and I ended up doing my Bachelor of Business Law and Corporate Administration.
Yeah.
And it took me 10 years because during that time carrying on with my career, I had 2 children as well. And in fact, remember one of my lecturers made me stand up because of being so tenacious. I was actually in the hospital giving birth, like having, about to give birth over the next couple of hours with my second daughter, and I was studying for a mid-semester test and I had all my books out.
You are one determined lady.
Yeah. And Rob Guthrie, who is still around, I see him on LinkedIn. And I've actually sat next to him, and I don't think he recognised who I was. But I remember looking at him thinking, I know what you did to me. He made me stand up in the lecture theatre that after I'd given birth and done the mid-semester test, and said, any of you out there that feel you've got excuses, see this lady here? She studied for a mid-semester test and got through and gave birth
at the same time. That's incredible.
So but again, I really appreciated that, and he actually was on the stage when he gave me the certificate of my degree, so that meant the world to me. And then after spending a couple of years after I qualified, I actually going back again. Sorry, I keep going back.
Okay.
This is where my oil and gas and mining sort of career commenced. Is after those 2 years of temp work, I got a role with Worley. Now, Worley is one of the largest engineering companies worldwide, but when I started with them, we were quite small. So we were all broken up into our divisions. I started, there was only 6 of us in chemicals and minerals, and I was working with my business unit manager. My role was the PA administrator, and we were told, like each division, okay, we did our mission and vision statements. Where do we want to go? And it was on. And there was this friendly rivalry between all the business units of Worley, where we were really excited to see what we could do.
Sure.
Everyone had their power teams. And in 2 years, Worley, the excitement of doing tenders and late night tenders at 2, 3 in the morning, bidding for projects and things. And we became successful. We won a few projects, and a really big one, Alcoa, and we grew to 70 engineers, a mixture of engineers, CAD designers. And then after 2 years of being a part of this and good camaraderie within Worley, the executive director, Peter Mers, asked me would I come with him to another subsidiary that they were wanted to grow and market. And so I went across with him and spent another 2 years developing and marketing a data-aided design package, which, again, go out to the market. I was not an engineer, but just go sell it.
Yeah.
So
just do it.
Just do it. Okay, great. Okay, so I had my spiel, and this is where you start realising, it's like magic, your capability. And I remember ringing, I think it was BP Singapore, and I needed to get my boss in there, and I sort of ring him up as like,
sure,
I've got this wonderful new package on the market. It's going to be great, and I got my boss an appointment with them over in Singapore, and it was like, how'd you do that? And I just think it's just, I generally like talking to the person on the other end of the phone. I believe in what I'm doing, and I believe in Worley, and I believe in the products and everything else. But it was just, it's that challenge and excitement of just doing it, and it's still out there today, all these years on. But I did that, and then I left them because I actually fell pregnant with my second daughter, and then I left, and then had to think about what I was going to do next. And while I was home with her, that's when I actually decided I need a backup career.
Sure.
Because at that stage I was PA administrator, executive assistant, as a lot of women were. And I have to say I'm not picking on men or women, but basically women back in the 80s and 90s, you were literally a PA, secretary, administrator. Administrator was a very big bucket.
Yeah, very diverse.
And very diverse. A lot of stuff was dumped in the administrator bucket without the title.
Yeah.
And the income.
Do you think times have changed, Candy, in that regard? And again, not to hate on men or anything, because I'm of the mindset, the world is there for anyone's taking, whether you're male or female. It goes down to your skill set. But I know in those times, like, women were very suppressed. You had this was your place, and that was all do you feel times have changed in that regard?
Definitely they've changed. There's opportunity, and walls have been broken down and ceilings broken where there's definitely more and more opportunity, more and more women holding all sorts of different roles. I still believe, and from my journey, the income does not match my counterparts, having done the same role as a woman in a male has done my role. They're very reluctant to give you the higher dollars. And I'd like to see that change.
Yeah.
Because I know personally so many amazing women out there. Actually, I won't mention names, but one of my companies I work for, they had this memo went across my desk, and it said, the stars within the organisation. And they were all men.
Right.
And I've always been a firecracker.
I don't think so.
So I took that memo to my boss.
Sure.
And I said, if this gets out, this is going to cause uproar.
Yeah, of course.
You've got amazing women within this organisation. You've got female engineers, female leaders all over the place. And they at that stage I called them love-ins. The management team going to Roto.
Sure.
All men going to chat about where the organisation was going. They obviously had their star list. And so my boss made a call to one of the directors and said, Candy's got this list and she's really upset about it. And so he met with me.
Oh, right.
And so he said, I hear you have a problem with the list. And I said, I damn well do have a problem with the list because how can you ignore so many leaders within this organisation? And there's women here that need to be recognised. And he took it on board, and I think that list got buried.
Good.
It was done with.
Yeah.
But that's the way for me, like instantly I thought, I can't sit by and see, and I didn't necessarily want to be on the list. It's just this is about fair recognition.
Of course, yeah.
And so I think as my journey has progressed, that was once leaving Worley, I was asked to by one of the directors on Wandoo Alliance, who I'd worked for previously, who actually said to me, look, I've been made the project manager for Rock Oil for Cliffhead. Would you please come and help me? And I said, oh, I'd love to. So I got flown to Sydney and I got to meet with Rock Oil over there. I got to meet John Doran. What an amazing man John was. John was founding member of Rock Oil. My type of person. Yeah. He actually sat with us when we had breakfast at the Piermont, the Peppermont Estate, in the Blue Mountains. He wanted to know all about me, and I'm just assisting and helping. I was actually still on maternity leave with my youngest. And so, but I jumped at the opportunity. I said, of course I can help you. Let me see what I can do. But it's only going to be for a short period of time because I want to go back to maternity leave. So I spent the next 6-7 months getting to know John Doran and the team at Rock Oil. It was amazing. I loved working for the project manager, Kevin English. And then I ended up leaving Cliffhead, the project, and going back to maternity leave. But why I brought that up was John Doran really made an impact on me as somebody who was so high. He knew everyone in the organisation. He was the kindest man.
And humble as well, by the sounds of it. Yeah.
And unfortunately, just before he passed, he just sent me an email. I had thought about it. I was thinking about him, and I sent him an email and said, hey, how you going? Merry Christmas. And he goes, oh, glad you sent me an email. He said, I can pretend I'm doing some work and be straight. He was just teasing. And and he said, oh, how are you going? I heard you're doing really well. And shortly after that, he was jogging and he was found passed away in the park.
Oh, how awful.
And, that was devastating for me as somebody who had impacted my life. And he went too early.
Yes.
But, very caring man. These are people who impacted my life and leaders who could see who I was and what I was capable of.
And Candy, I think you've highlighted something really important there, that on your growth journey, sometimes I think one can get quite wrapped up in success and the highlights and the, if you want to say ball of life or whatever it is. But I find it's so such an eye-opener when someone, they're so successful, they're so humble, but yet they still make time to say like, hey, what's your name or what are you doing? Or they kind of see you. And I think that's a great reminder that when you're on this growth journey, to stay humble, to, if someone does reach out, like I often get messages on LinkedIn about what podcast equipment are you using? And I'm like, oh my gosh, if only you knew in the beginning it was so shit. But it's just a nice reminder to help those that are kind of maybe starting at the bottom again, starting at the bottom or starting again or something along those lines. So, great reminder.
Yeah, and I've taken that on board because of the type of leaders that I've had in Peter Mers and John Doran and I'll talk about Steve Jones, we were about the same age and we came through INE Systems 2 years together there, and then he actually created Plexel Group, another engineering company.
Yeah.
He asked me to come on board as their operations manager years on, and Steve and I had an amazing relationship, and I jumped at the chance to work for Plexel. But that same care and leadership, Plexel, working for them meant the world to me. I was respected. I really wanted to help the company out. I got to learn some amazing skills. I got involved and learned all about QA and the ISO 9001, 2008 and got us reaccredited. That's hard work.
So I've heard.
Hard yakka. I cried.
Yeah. I think I've heard a few people say that.
I promised the auditor we would get everything sorted out because you have your 3-year accreditation and I worked my bum off with the QA manager weekends and it takes a lot of hard yakka.
Yes.
And I said to the auditor, because he said, you're not going to make it. I said, yes, I am. So there he goes again.
Can't work.
No, yeah. Oh, no, the magic word.
Yes.
And that I actually said, I actually want you to come back and do the audit again. I don't want another auditor to show you that I'm going to prove to you we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And he came back and we got it. He said, Candy, you guys have done an amazing job. And he said, if you ever want me to be a reference, which I thought was really kind.
Great. Yeah.
Great. But that was where teamwork and camaraderie is so important to me. And that was something that I would walk through the office every day and go and chat to everyone.
Yes. Even at the networking event that we met at, it felt like I'd known you for ages. It was like, oh, yeah, it was so nice.
Yeah, I loved people. Just like go through, make sure everyone was all right.
Yes.
And again, and I've still got on my LinkedIn network people that from all these companies that still mean the world to me, and every once in a while they pop up and I get a chance to see that they're okay. How are you going? Good to see you're doing so well. And that's how I sort of have built. I haven't gone aggressively out to get to know a lot of people.
Sure.
It's just organically how I've got to know people. And I'm one of those as well at a networking event. You'll never see me work a room.
Right.
You'll see me find someone to chat to and I will spend all evening literally getting to know that person. And I love getting to know people and their backgrounds, their stories, where they're going. I find people fascinating.
They are, definitely, hence why I started the podcast.
yeah. And congratulations on the podcast. They've been amazing.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
So I guess I think for but they are without I was kind of devastated in a way of 2 years of hard work that I had done to build something, and due to the way that the company had decided the direction they were going, they were bought out by a French company.
Sure.
And at that stage, even though I'd done so much work to stabilise the company, they still needed a male engineer to be the face of the company and to do that. And I was kind of removed from my role.
Why did they need a male? Was that just the times or?
I think because of being an engineering company.
Right.
And a little bit of the times.
Just like the 90s maybe or?
Yeah, this was actually 2000.
Oh, wow.
So 2012 this happened in.
My goodness, not actually that long ago.
No, and I think for me it would have been good to had more communication, but the transparency of that they needed this figurehead of an engineer and he happened to be male. But I think things could have been handled differently. And I think for me it was one of those things you go through, but you actually have to wake up and learn as well because it's one thing to put everything out there, which I've always done, no matter what company I work for, whatever career I was doing. I give it my all and we become selfless.
Yes, yes.
And when you give too much of yourself over and become a people pleaser.
Been there.
And when the rug's pulled out from underneath you, it's a harsh lesson because especially if you've not taken care of yourself, and you go, what just happened? And now, and that kind of jolted me into thinking about making sure that when I'm doing something, think about why I'm doing it.
Yeah, be intentional.
Be intentional because not just because somebody asks you to do something. Think about it. And somebody told me a long time ago, everyone has an intention and a motive.
Yeah.
Now, that's not negative, but think about it. What's their intention? What is their motive?
Yeah.
Because there can be a negative and a positive, but at least you're giving it some thought.
Yeah, be sort of mindful of it.
Yeah, be mindful. And it could be just that they want to be your friend or they want to think, but that's okay. But at least you've given it some thought. And that was something for me has given me thought when I go and do something is, okay, what's the motive? Is it positive? Or if it's negative, at least you're aware of it and you can arm yourself.
Yeah.
So that was a very pivotal time in my life when that kind of happened. Also, pay was, and I'm still in touch with the through LinkedIn, and I admire him for what he did within his role. But when I took over his role, our pays were extremely different. Like there was almost, I'd have to say, 40% difference.
Wow.
But I still had to take on those same responsibilities and pick up the slack and sort things out after he left. For whatever reason, it sort of ended in the way that it did.
And Candy, I just have a question because I know this is a comment that gets dropped around by a lot of women. And again, I believe, the ball's there for anyone's taking. Just, shut up and get it done and do what you want to do and don't whinge and moan about being a man or woman. Do you think we live in a man's world?
I think what it is we shouldn't label it a man's world. It's
because that's what it gets labelled as.
Yeah, it gets labelled as.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of men in running plenty of organisations.
Sure.
And I know this doesn't sound very nice, but when I look at boards and I look at boardrooms and I see on LinkedIn it's, look at us, look how fantastic we are, and you see a sea of male faces.
Yeah.
And I do say, really? Because are you telling me there's no one within your organisation with the skill set to as a female to be amongst you?
Yeah.
And I find that was something for me breaking through some of this, even though I fell into the role as the operations manager / GM role in the oil and gas. My next role, again, I did fall into that as well. And somebody tried to take that away from me not long ago. They wanted to know, how did you get to run a waste management contract? Now, that was amazing, and I'll talk about that, how that happened, because I had actually got the job to run a recruitment agency. Right. That's what I thought I was running. So what I found out was the general manager who was running that contract couldn't run it anymore, and in a split second, the next thing I know, I'm going for a drug and alcohol and medical test. And that I've suddenly inherited a 3-year waste management contract to run.
Gosh.
And this is where I say to people, don't underestimate your skill and ability.
Yeah.
And I also have a problem with people being put into boxes.
Yeah.
And I've always had this, and no, I'm not picking on recruitment agencies. And yes, I am, because I've had it myself, is when you're going that you can't cross industries, or you can't do things like your skill set can't morph, it's close to, it's got to be, you've got to fit in the square peg in a square role.
Yeah.
Because I've never been that person. I don't fit that.
No.
And and I've bounced around from industry to industry, working in construction, mining, oil and gas. I didn't know anything about it when I walked into them.
No.
But I'm a learner. I'm somebody who will, if you ask me to go build a house, I'll say, okay. And I'll go and learn about plans.
Yes.
Estimators.
If you need someone to do the cement in between, I did that growing up with my dad, so I can help you with that.
Exactly. You know, no,
a bricklayer.
Yeah, it's that concept of you're in this now. I don't see the industries being so segregated that you cannot swap from one to the other to the next or learn. And so this is how so being full on in taking on this mining contract, next thing I know, I'm on an aeroplane flying to Murrin, sitting in my chair going, how the heck did I get here?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, what am I going to do? And so anyway, I land and the next thing I'm met with our workers and they're showing me the trucks that I'm responsible for now.
Wow.
So we're looking at these water carts and skip trucks and walking around site and I'm being shown the landfill, the offices and then also, you know, as time goes on, I learn that I'm responsible for a shutdown team. So we've got the shutdown workers and it's a day and night job. So you've got day workers and night workers and they're my responsibility. Their safety is my responsibility. This becomes very, very serious.
Yeah.
So, I took it on wholeheartedly. This was when you've got human beings' lives at risk. And I started to learn everything I needed to know. I had great support on Murrin from all personnel there, particularly the superintendent that I reported to. And I learned all about what audits I needed to do. I learned all about, I remember we need new chocks. And I was like, what's chocks? It's just the chocks, the wheels to stop trucks from rolling.
I thought it was like chucks, those
yeah,
I was like,
chocks.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, so it was like, okay, we'll get those. And
yes.
but I started to learn all the terminology and everything and like no different to studying and doing my degrees. And I'm not sure if I said that, that's when I decided as well. I was doing my Juris Doctor as well. So that was all in the background while raising my kids and everything else. And
Candy, I have to interrupt. I have to take a moment to just celebrate you. I think you're one of those rare humans that you just take on whatever life brings you. And I don't think many people can do that. Like it just seems from what you've shared with us is that every time there was a challenge, you kind of just took it in your stride, learned what you needed to learn or, you know, you did what needed to be done. And did you ever get phased? Was that like a mantra that you held on to? Because I think it's just amazing how you've been able to kind of pivot. And for our listeners, I know you've recently pivoted again, correct me if I'm wrong, about 2 years ago in working with Procopio Legal and doing your law, which I think is amazing. Candy shared her age with me and I didn't believe her. So I think it's so inspirational in that, you know, sometimes we think life is going to work out a certain way. We're supposed to have X, Y, Z, and sometimes life takes us in a completely different direction or journey. And I'd love to know, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I think it's just wonderful how you just kind of, you go and you navigate and nothing seems to hold you back. Is there any advice or tips you could share with our listeners? Perhaps they may be feeling stuck, or what would be a mantra you could share with them?
I guess if we look at the side of me that's spiritual as well. So I've always trusted in the journey.
Yeah.
So when you say don't look a gift horse in the mouth, it's like you never know when you're going to get that phone call, that person come and speak to you, cross your pathway. And I'm going to shoot back to my childhood again.
Yeah,
because basically everybody expected me to fail because I was crap at school. My parents, bless them, you brought me into this world, I'm taking myself out. I I was the kid and not going anywhere. I wasn't going to succeed. Nobody backed me. So when you got no one that's got any expectations on you,
Yeah.
I had to be my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
So it was like if anything was going to happen, it was all up to me. So I was either going to be a complete failure or I was actually going to do something.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I've always backed me 100%. Even if I don't even think I've got the skills, I'm going to get them.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn. I'm going to find out what it takes to get this done. And there's a tenacity and a fire in me that has, and I'm not sure when it really ignited, and when it really showed itself. But I think it was just maybe even it went when I was 18, 19 and I got into this modelling industry and I was someone on the outside. I've always been on the outside, and that's the other thing too. I'm not one of cliques. I've never been able to belong into anything. I've always sat on the outside of everything. So I've kind of always been like a lone wolf.
So do you feel like you didn't belong in some ways? Because that's kind of how I've felt a bit in life.
Well, I didn't belong in my own family. A family of 6. I don't belong, and I still to this day don't belong.
Right.
So I've always been on the outside, and when you're different and you're on the outside, and I used to take that, and I was desperate to belong. I think a part of me wanted to belong, and my way of doing, if I do really well at this, I'll be liked. But not that was my driving thing, because also there's a part of me that doesn't give a shit whether you like me.
I'm the same.
Because, you're going to find there's people who, I can't control whether people love or hate me.
No, that's something I learned, a few years ago as well.
I just can't. You either like me, you're going to like me, or you're going to dislike me.
Yeah.
And I am someone who says it as it is. I'm sorry, says it as it is in my truth.
Yeah.
If I think you're being rude, I will tell you you're being rude. And I have no problems with that. Or I'll ask you, and I remember asking a teller one day at the bank, and she was very rude. And I said, "Are you okay?" As in, like, I meant it, "Are you okay?" Because you're being quite rude, but I didn't say to her. I said, "Are you okay?" But she burst into tears. Her son had been in a motorbike accident that morning. And she really shouldn't have been there at work. But it's even that, you don't know what kind of day someone's having.
Yeah, of course.
And that to me, it's like, but maybe you are just a nasty person, and that's the way I'm going to ask you, "Are you okay?" And you go, "Yeah, I'm fine." And you're just, you're just on your pathway and on your journey.
Sure.
And you and I aren't really going to see much of each other or talk very much. But I think I've always wanted to be just authentic in who I am. And that's it. And, I've always gone on my own fashion. I've never followed trends.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, what are you wearing? And I do look like a pirate out there for anybody who sees me sometimes. I think there's something, that resonates. That I love pirates and Red Indians and things like that. I just sort of, I think that tenacity of having to survive and be a survivor. And I'm a survivor, and I think that's where I will survive whatever's thrown at me in that way. And that's what I did. I survived the 3 years on the mine site, even though I wasn't on the mine site all the time, but when I needed to be on the mine site and doing what I need to do. But I did everything I could, and it broke my heart during that 3 years, because not only was this a waste management contract, but I also got to work with Indigenous people.
Yes.
It was, and my heart, it was a history with the Indigenous that I didn't know. I'd never worked with Indigenous, and I actually became very passionate and started to understand the history of Indigenous people. And there's so much that still needs to change, and the support that they need. But it was a very difficult world to navigate.
Sure.
But I found myself very passionate, particularly about the younger Indigenous youth. And my phone was always open because it was an Indigenous recruitment company as well.
Sure.
And I started to create a lot of possibilities and opportunities, and that broke my heart because I worked my bum off with the team to get our RTO status because we had amazing training facilities as well in Guildford, and I had started working with the WA Police, all as in young Indigenous people who actually wanted to join the police. I wanted a pathway that I wanted to organise that they could get into. I started to look at white collar courses. So I was using trainers auspiciously to come in and train, but I wanted our own RTO status, and I worked so hard for it, but we were unable to get accredited. And I took that really personally as well. There were sort of these moments in life where you sort of realise you can keep climbing that mountain and keep climbing, and you may not get to the top. And it's so incredibly disappointing.
Sure.
And that was another disappointment because I could see how much we could have done and what we could. I was on a mission at that stage.
And how did you handle that disappointment, Candy?
Very badly, as in I went into a depression from that point, actually, when you actually – the journey I'd already been on, and I'd given everything during those 3 years. One, running the mine site, that was a whole world in itself, but also running the training centre, and I had so much vision. We had even incorporated a medical centre onto the site so that all our teams could get medically accredited. I'd also got external contracts I'd secured with other large mining organisations who were starting to come to us for their drug and alcohol testing and medicals. We just had a phenomenal thing happening, but I just couldn't get the support in industry or government at that point. And when that comes crashing down, it's absolutely heartbreaking because it was an Indigenous company that had been around for like 25 years history had just, gone, but also the good things that could have done.
Also.
And so, I actually went into a hole for 2 years.
Right, from that experience. I
just needed time out, and this is kind of how it led me to where we are today.
Yes.
And this is where for anybody who's going through I know Jim Carrey says it, and I saw it. He says, depressed is deep rest. And there's lots of different versions about that. I reckon it is a way of your mind and body saying enough. And then I think people struggle when you hit that wall.
Yes.
And sometimes it can take people years to get out of it. I took 2 years out for me. So it's 2 years to unpack the journey I'd been on.
Yeah.
2 years to let my mind and body recover and try and figure things out. But lucky for me, I had actually had my backup career.
Sure.
So while and this is where I think people need to have a think about because people can spend 20, 30 years doing what they're doing in an industry, but you know what? We all have our moments where we can wake up one day and go, what am I doing? I don't love what I'm doing. What am I going to do? And if you haven't thought about that one day wake up, you might want to think about it because it can happen to anybody. And you hit a crossroads. And I think for me, I was very lucky. I'd done my Juris Doctor in the background. I'd also become a member of the Governance Institute as well, which I've been a member since 2021. And I still hadn't even convinced myself I was going to be a lawyer at that stage. I just was in this, I'm out of it.
Wow.
I don't know what I'm going to do. Have no clue.
This was during that 2-year time frame?
2 years. It's a long time. And originally I started to apply for the same old jobs that I'd been doing.
Sure.
And the doors weren't opening.
Yeah.
And this is where I went back to trusting in the journey, because I thought, why are all these doors closing? Why is nobody gives a shit about what?
It's frustrating.
It's really frustrating. I'm saying, look, I've got all this amazing background and career.
In your career.
Nothing.
Wow.
Absolutely nothing. So I just stopped. You have to stop. Just stop. So I took time out, and it wasn't until I did my practical legal training. I'd got admitted into the Supreme Court in 2020 and was still not sure what I wanted to do. Oh, yes, I did. I actually thought I went back to what I was doing, and I became director of operations for an oil and gas and mining company, oil and gas company. And they wanted me to build it was a startup company again. So I found myself back with startup or it's always startup or clean up, basically.
Sure.
And so I started digging in and setting things up for this new organisation. And I was finding it difficult dragging myself out of bed every day. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? I'm hating this. I don't want to be doing this. And then so, as much as it was, I quit and went back home again. So I'm sitting at home again, and that's when the phone rang, and it was a girlfriend of mine who'd studied with me, and she just said, well, you're going to get off your bum and come and be a lawyer. And it was like, she said, look, I'm in a law firm, they've got a role, send me your CV and I'll pass your CV on to them. So it was quite scary, especially when you're like, this is a big leap. But again, I say to you, I've probably, one of the other things in me based on my childhood, I became very fearless in my environment of what I grew up in. I grew up in an area that was quite rough in the outskirts of London.
Sure.
Got into some fist fights myself.
Oh, don't mess with Candy.
No. Well, you had no choice in where I grew up.
Of course, yeah.
And so I became quite a fearless human being. And that's where I think as well, if I go diverse again, in my 20s I was boxing with the state amateur boxing coach.
Right.
And was doing really well. And he's amazing, Tommy Greenwood. I don't know where he is today, Tommy, and I hope you're still alive. He was training even like the football players and everything. He was an amazing trainer.
Yeah.
And so I seemed to be sort of attracted to Zendu-kai karate and boxing at that stage, and I was fearless, and I had no problems getting in and having a bout and doing things like that. And then, but I started to question that when I was before I was a mother. Sure. I started to question what's wrong with me that I'm absolutely that fearless, no thought to my safety. I can take on absolutely anything. And that's where I realised fear can be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because you're not questioning what you're stepping into and your vulnerabilities. And so I actually did do some counselling at that stage because I had to look at who is Candy and why is she so fearless.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been a mother there, and I thought I'm going to be a mum one day, and this fearlessness and I didn't want to be vulnerable. And I think that's one of those things that go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I didn't want nobody was going to ever see me vulnerable. Being vulnerable was really scary for me.
Yeah.
And so I had some counselling, and I sort of realised it was during this counselling time that I felt fear and vulnerability for the first time, and it was really scary.
Yeah, it would have been.
Really scary, but it balanced me out.
Yeah.
And that's where I think I never forgot that experience, and that's stayed with me, where I can still be fearless but also vulnerable, and keeping that balance of that together. And that's where, again, going, I'm about to take a leap of faith and be a lawyer now. Boy, that's scary, exciting, but let's do it.
Yes.
But I have to be vulnerable too, and you've got to be vulnerable in law, and that's what I found as well. As you know, I work for Procopio Legal.
Yes.
Marcus is an amazing man.
He is, yeah.
He's a diamond in the rough in the fact that him as a leader of his vulnerabilities, and who you see is what you get, and the caring, but he's got the toughness as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Within him, so that balance. We match each other very well that way.
You guys do.
And especially how now when you're in law, I can't run ahead fearless into law. I'll find myself off the roll. Very quickly. My career as a lawyer will be short-lived.
Yeah.
And Marcus reminds me, he's my goalkeeper, my my person to make sure I stay grounded, and not that passion within me that's been passion in everything that I've done. Passion can get me in trouble in law as well, because I can advocate for my client, which I have done already, so much so. But, and as the Marcus says, don't drink the Kool-Aid. And he's very funny.
Yes.
He just, I get what he says.
Yeah.
I have to remain and make sure that I have everything understood. Don't go racing ahead. I'm so used to building the house. I'm so used to taking on the challenge and doing that. This is a new stage in my life where it's a lot of thinking. A lot of thinking, a lot of stopping.
Definitely.
So I'm in this new pathway and I'm still learning. I'm still on a very steep learning curve. I'm on my last 5 months. So for anybody out there who wants a career later in life, I always say to people, and okay, I'll be heading to 60, right?
Still can't believe that, but never mind.
But I have friends who are heading in their 60s who talk to me about retirement. They're ready for retirement, and I'm at the stage where I think I'm so excited. I've got another 20 years of a career that I can help so many people. And that's what I love about who you are as an individual, I find, is who you attract to you.
Yes, that's so true.
And I've been such a believer about like attracts like.
Definitely.
And I will look at that. I don't care, even politics and companies or people I'll observe and see, and I'll see very much so when I was running companies, people would come to me and I would meet them face to face, as in take them face on who they are, but also it would take into account who they surrounded themselves with, who they were. And that's not judging people, because we are who we are, but also it's just the way that I look at things is we attract people into our life where we are.
Yes, definitely.
And I feel like that with the law. I find the clients that come to us genuinely are the type of people that really need our help, and they need people like Marcus and I who have that strength and depth and caring and need us to advocate for them. And so I'm only new to this journey. It's been 18 months. It's been phenomenal.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I like advocating for people, but it's like, you know, I have a mountain to climb again, but I'm up for it.
Yeah.
That's the exciting thing. And I'd say to anybody And I do talk to individuals who I say, it's never too late.
Yeah.
It's never, ever too late to change what you're doing. If you don't like it, go do that course. Go talk to people. And I find spiritually, when I go to the spiritual, you don't know, once you've made that decision, you don't know when you're going to get that phone call.
True.
You're going to meet that person. And it's fun having that vision. It's fun seeing a vision of something you dream about, and you hear it all the time from people who are on Idol.
Yeah.
Or no matter what, we probably this day and age on YouTube and everything else, these stories are coming to us left, right and centre. But I believe in them. I do truly believe it, and I've lived it too, because I've dreamt and I've found myself in positions where I feel I'm so incredibly blessed for having an experience that I go, wow, how did I I get to be the person experiencing this right now, because that's all the icing on the cake that came along with the dream or the thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely one for encouraging people to just think about who they are. We all are learning. Over the last couple of years, I've worked with learning about my value system.
Yes.
That was something I wish somebody had talked to me about.
Same.
So long ago.
Game changer. Yeah, definitely.
What are your values? Somebody said to me, list your values. And I probably listed about 3 or 4 things, and they came up with a list of about 20 while I was sitting in front of them. And I was like, but you have to value yourself. And if I valued myself the way that I do today, half the people I hung out with or what I did in my past or experiences I had would have been very different.
Yes, yeah, and it forms that compass from which you operate, I've found.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when something crosses your path, it's like, does it align with my values or no? And you can either decide if it's going to, again, going back to intention, like, is it going to be, it does it align, and is it worth my while going ahead? So, or not. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to keep learning. As I say, like, if you turn, you're green. If you're green, you're not brown, you die. So it's like, stay green.
Yes.
Want to learn. Be excited about life. And, even for me, when I remember doing my practical legal training, I'm not from the legal industry, didn't know any lawyers. And I'm in my practical legal training. I'm around all these sort of, they're younger than me, people, and they've all sort of got their internships for the 6-week training you need to do, 4 weeks training, all teed up with these law firms, and they're all set, and I've got no one. And I'm thinking, where am I going to get the opportunity? And thanks to Leo Cousin, they have partnerships, and I pinched myself. How did I get this? I get a barrister who is doing criminal law, and the next thing I find myself is preparing his brief with him for 6 weeks, and I get the experience of being in the Supreme Court during a murder trial.
Wow.
So I'm sitting behind him in the Supreme Court, and the fact he trusted me to go through all the evidence, put everything together, and I'd never done this before, and to then seamlessly work with him throughout the murder trial. And again, an experience I'll never, ever forget. And I got one of the best experiences from our group.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't in a law firm at a desk doing this. Here I am
in the courtroom
in the Supreme Court, and then I get other sort of similar during that 6-week period. But that's life. But that's putting yourself out there, and again, having the courage to put your step forward, because we're more capable than we actually may think we are.
So true. Yeah.
And I think if I'm anything for anybody out there based on my journey, whether I've been in the fashion industry, the resource sector, law now, and I don't know how my journey in law is going to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a long one,
Yeah.
and I'm treading carefully.
I think with your determination, there's only one way it's going to go. Just saying.
Thanks, Tracy. That faith. And I've come across the right people.
Yes.
And I think that's the other thing too. Question if you are being led down a pathway that you don't want to be led down. But no, it's an exciting future for everyone, and I think everyone needs to back themselves, like to get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because it can be really great out there if you're actually and exciting. Because we've got this one life we're living at the moment. And I don't think I'm living it to the fullest. Like I'm not parachuting.
Oh, my gosh, you're doing so much.
But I do have to just shout out as well that I'm very blessed to be on a board member of a homeless charity as well. That's an honour. And the amazing team. And we will be coming up they'll be celebrating 50 years of
incredible
of helping people with homelessness. And
which charity is it?
55 Central.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm very honoured to be a part of them. So that gives me another way of giving back to the community. But yeah, it's just one of those things life's there for living. And I've encouraged both my girls to follow their dreams.
Yeah, so important.
And I'm very proud of them too, of having that tenacity and fearlessness. And
I believe they've got a fashion brand as well, one of your daughters.
Yeah, one. My eldest is actually has her Aldaz studio, has self-taught herself how to work with 100% genuine leather.
Yes, beautiful
and,
products. Yeah.
It's in the website is up, and she's been busy finishing her uni degree. But as soon as that's over towards the end of this year, she will be 100% pushing. You'll start seeing the product getting out there, and she's incredibly creative, and there'll be your leather corsets and
very cool
crazy design belts that you're not going to be able to see in the stores. And she's come from the fashion industry, having been a model herself. Well, she's still a model. And then
she's stunning. I've seen her photo.
Thank you. And the younger ones is in the hospitality industry, and it was one of the youngest venue managers.
Wow.
At 22 or 23 years old, running a big hospitality venue, which she's doing. So, they know I believe in them, and I think also if you've got people who believe in you,
yes,
people believe in you and have your back.
Definitely. And I think like you highlighted before, sometimes it won't necessarily be your family. It could be a complete stranger that you either work with or, in some way, shape or form, but they're just that person having that like unwavering belief in you, especially on the days where you don't even believe in yourself.
We all have those.
A few of them. It just really helps propel you and to achieve things that, that I only ever journaled about, to be quite honest with you. So,
but even how our pathway crossed.
Yes.
I didn't know how Design Studio was going to change us. It's been so exciting.
I'm so glad.
Marcus and I are a new partnership, and your branding has the way you did it, and you got to know who Marcus and I were and aligned it. Even our tagline. Yes. I love our tagline.
Same, I'm biased.
You nailed who Marcus and I were.
Thank you.
You took that into account. You designed our logo, our website and everything around who we were. And I'm excited when that finally launches.
Same.
But that was just a chance meeting. Like
Just a
I still
scrum
remember
event.
that moment,
Yeah.
me just sort of saying, "Oh, you might like my daughter's belt."
I'll have that look. Shoes, bags, anything, I'm there.
Yeah, and then we got talking.
We did, yes.
And so much has happened since then.
It
so
has.
much. And that's the thing, you never know. And don't discount whoever's going to cross your pathway.
So true.
And that's why I find just taking that time to get to know and talk to someone who's just crossed your pathway, get to know them. I like to hear people's journey, where they're at, and and I think that's what's really important. So if anything, that's all I want to say to anybody who's listening here is, just have faith in your journey, have courage.
Thank you, Candy. Yeah, one final question before we sign off. If you could go back and stand in front of your younger self, what's one bit of advice you give younger Candy, say when you were 16 years old, and why?
16-year-old younger Candy. So naive. That 16-year-old didn't know who she was, didn't know her ability, and didn't even think she was going to be anything. And it would be exciting for me to say to her, hang on tight, hang on tight, and actually just enjoy the ride, and know that everything you're doing is you're learning is leading you to an even better experience. So just you are somebody.
Powerful.
You are somebody.
Candy, thank you so much for all that you've shared. I know a lot of what you shared I needed to hear, so thank you. And again, you were so inspirational, and I think it's fantastic that you just have this fierce fire in you that no matter what comes your way, you just, I'm going to say grab it by the balls and just go with it. So thank you so much for your time. I've loved our chat. Where is the best place for our listeners to go should they wish to connect with you?
LinkedIn. Just LinkedIn. I don't only have any other social platforms, so.
Not yet.
Thanks, Tracy.
That's all right. We'll pop all the show notes. We'll pop all the links in the show notes below as well. Thank you so much, Candy.
And thank you for having me, Tracy.
Most welcome.